The regular season is over, and now we started with 32, and now we are down to 12. Hello, friends, and welcome to this first installment of Football Thursday of the new year. It is Anthony Florio, your host, as always, joined by good old MF Michael Fletcher. And, well, a couple of things we need to address. First thing we need to address, because the national championship game in the college football playoff is not until the 13th, we have decided that we are going to push our preview of that game to next week. So next week, in addition to the 4 NFL divisional playoff games, we will add the college football playoff national championship to that, and that's your show for next week. We're going to get into our regulation shows in a couple of weeks. But for this week, it's going to be the wild card games pretty much. But we do need to start with very sad news that came out yesterday. David Stern, the longtime commissioner of the NBA, he passed away at the age of 77. And we here at Strictly Sports send our thoughts and our prayers and our condolences to the family of David Stern. And we are going to dedicate this broadcast in his memory here tonight. So, say what you want about him, but he had a tremendous impact on the NBA. He was there. He was the commissioner of the NBA for 30 years. Stepped down. He started in 1984, and then he ended in 2014. And a lot of NBA superstars and legends and Hall of Famers, they paid their respects. And it's I never would have thought the very first day of the new year we would already have a close to home death. That's very sad. I remember it was a year ago today that I believe it was a year ago today that we lost Mean Gene Okerlund in the WWE. But to Michael Jordan, without David Stern, the NBA would not be what it is today. And Shaquille O'Neal said Stern was simply the best commissioner to ever do it. In the wake of Stern's death yesterday, numerous NBA stars of the past and present paid tribute to the league's longtime former commissioner. Many took to social media to offer remembrances of Stern, including Chris Paul, who wrote on Twitter, "The game lost a leader today." Dwayne Wade said, "R.I.P. David Stern. Shaking your hand on June 26, 2003 was a dream come true," because that was the night Dwayne Wade was drafted. Stern died at 77 after suffering a brain hemorrhage while dining in a New York restaurant almost 3 weeks earlier. His association with the NBA started in 1966 when he began providing legal counsel, and while serving as commissioner from 1984 to 2014, he presided over a massive expansion of the league's global reach and revenue streams. His successor and current NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, said Wednesday in a statement, "Because of David, the NBA is a truly global brand, making him not only one of the greatest sports commissioners of all time, but also one of the most influential business leaders of his generation." Magic Johnson, who was described by Stern in 2013 as probably more important to the NBA than any other player because he had a love of the game that was instantly recognizable. Magic said on Twitter that the former commissioner was a great man, husband, father, friend, businessman, and visionary. And David Stern, and of course, Stern often cited Magic Johnson's HIV diagnosis in 1991 and subsequent return to the league as one of the most important episodes in league history because of the effect it had on a nation in a panic over AIDS. And Johnson said on Wednesday, "David Stern was such a history maker. When I announced in 1991 I had HIV, people thought they could get the virus from shaking my hand. When David allowed me to play in the 1992 All-Star game in Orlando and then play for the Olympic Dream Team, we were able to change the world." Scottie Pippen said, "Very sad day for basketball. We saw David Stern a lot in the 90s, and I found him to be kind, thoughtful, and almost always the smartest person in the room. He was an innovator who helped grow our sport into a global game and his impact will never be forgotten. R.I.P. Commissioner. Yeah, Scotty and the Bulls saw David Stern 6 times, as a matter of fact, in the 1990s when David Stern presented them with their 6 NBA championships that they won in the 1990s. One of the greatest of all time, Bill Russell, he said, "I cannot put into words what the friendship of David Stern has meant to me, but many others. He changed so many lives. David was a great innovator and made the game we love what it is today. This is a horrible loss. Our hearts are with Diane and their family. R.I.P., my friend." And Yao Ming said upon Stern's retirement, he said, "I think he is the greatest person in NBA history. He made everything happen." Dirk Nowitzki called it sad news, adding, "We lost a legend." Steve Nash, "Thank you, David Stern. You changed everything, and we are eternally grateful." Paul Gasol, "The NBA family lost a legend, a leader that changed our game for the better." And WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert said his steadfast commitment to women's sports was ahead of its time and has provided countless opportunities for women and young girls who aspire to play basketball. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said that David was a driving force in sports for decades and helped the NBA soar to new heights around the world, while NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman called Stern a man of great vision and energy who was responsible for the operational and business advancements that created the modern sports industry. And even Mark Cuban, Mark Cuban had many run-ins with David Stern over the years. He said, "You always said you made me, and you were absolutely right. You were a friend, mentor, and administrator of the largest donut fund ever. You are missed." And so many others. Karl Anthony Towns said, "R.I.P. David Stern. The game thanks you and will miss you." James Harden saying the entire NBA family and fans around the world will miss you. Stephen Curry said, "We'll never forget the words you spoke this day. With the 7th pick, changed my life forever. Thank you and your family for your leadership and commitment to growing the game of basketball around the world. Forever grateful. R.I.P. Commissioner Stern." And so many others, from Kevin Love to Al Horford, Tristan Thompson, Jamal Crawford, Jamal Murray, paying their respects, and rightfully so, to David Stern. And, whether it was presenting a team with a championship or calling the players' names in the NBA draft, as he did for so many years, he is someone who will never, ever be forgotten, whether you loved him or whether you hated him. The NBA wouldn't be where it is today without David Stern. So on behalf of MF, and whenever he comes in, if he comes in, Michael Bullock, and the rest of our Strictly Sports family, we would like to, at this time, send our thoughts and prayers and condolences to the late, great David Stern, who will never be forgotten, and he will be it's hard to put into words. So Mr. Stern, on behalf of, as we always like to say, on behalf of all of the fans of the NBA, including myself and MF and so many others around the world, thank you for the memories. Thank you for the inspiration. And thank you for David Stern. Good old MF Michael Fletcher has been our NBA analyst for the longest time, for the last several years. And MF, you know more about the impact that David Stern had on the NBA, a lot more than I do. So if you would, share some of your thoughts and whatnot about David Stern.
Yeah. The best way to say about David Stern, Anthony, is that this man revolutionized the NBA. The NBA was struggling. It was almost next to bankrupt back in the 1980s. And there was a time where the NBA wasn't as popular as it was. And David Stern in 1984, you eloquently said, took over the league and made it not only a phenomenon in America, but made it a global phenomenon. Now you see NBA games being shown all over the world. In Latin America, you see the outreach of games being played in Mexico, in China. Just recently, games are being played over there. But now there's a little bit of some trouble with that Hong Kong situation. But you see games in Japan, games in Australia, and games that are being played all over the world now. And basketball is now, you kind of have to admit, it's probably the number 2 sport in America behind the NFL. And that's because of David Stern and what he did for the game. And yeah, he did he marketed the game around the stars of the NBA. He marketed around Magic, Bird, Michael, Isaiah, Charles, Ewing. All these guys, he basically gave a pillar and gave an outreach and led them to become the international game that it is today. Think about it. The revenue for the NBA was about maybe a few $100 million. With David Stern, he has made the NBA itself almost $2, $3, $4, $5 billion. So the outreach that he's done with revenue, with the arenas, expanding the league that went from, I believe, 24 teams to now 30 teams in the NBA, to the marketing of television rights, where back in the day it was on, it wasn't really relatively known, maybe ABC, CBS. Then there was that lucrative contract in 1991 that was one of the largest contracts that the NBA ever garnered with NBC, and without a doubt that led to more people watching the games. The NBA on NBC, now transitioning to, Turner Sports getting games for TNT, ESPN, and ABC, the official home of the NBA Finals. And, now you have this cross-branded thing with NBA TV, NBA.com, the NBA League package that you see on cable networks. It's all because of visionaries of David Stern. And of course, you can also talk about it. The interjection of the Dream Team to Olympic competition. Now professional stars playing for their countries in the Olympic format. And that was also a revolutionary thing for that to happen. Now you see it being probably one of the biggest highlighted events of the Olympic Games, to see the greatest NBA players playing for their countries for the gold medal in the Summer Games. And we'll get to see that very soon in Tokyo, Japan, when the next Olympiad begins. David Stern was also a guy who is very shrewd. Was some of his decisions fair? Maybe not. Depending on who you think the team that got burned at the end. But at the end of the day, he did such an incredible job, making the league as formidable, as powerful, as great as it is. And I think without David Stern, the NBA probably would be non-existent. Like, honestly. Not only that, but the one other thing is that he really was pioneering for younger talent to really make their way up, to get into the opportunities. That's why LeBron jumped. That's why Kobe jumped from a high school level into the league. Because of those guys, they were able to flourish and become powerful and amazing players. Now, with also the credit is to him for establishing the WNBA. And, with the WNBA, I know a lot of people don't care about it because, it's during the summer. We don't got that. We got other things that we worry about and other stuff. Trust me, I've gotten to see a few WNBA seasons, and I follow it. I'll say not completely, but from time to time, I keep up with the WNBA. And year in and year out, the league gets better and better and better for the women. To give them an avenue for the women's game, and for that, that's because of David Stern. One person went as far to say that other than Billie Jean King, David Stern is probably the best example for establishing women's sports and put it to the forefront of American for American audiences. And not only that, but the WNBA is also starting to get bigger around the world as well because of his outreach, because of his influence, because of the marketing that he would want to do as a commissioner of the NBA. So without a doubt, this man took a thing that was virtually nothing and turned it into one of the most powerful leagues we've ever seen. I mean, without a doubt, the popularity of the NBA is so strong right now. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people, even nowadays, with the negativity that's going on with the NFL, the NBA is rising. And who knows? If it keeps going the right path with our current commissioner, Mr. Adam Silver, who knows? Maybe the NBA takes over and becomes the number one sport in America. I mean, it's very possible, Anthony. It's that powerful. And that's a vision that I know David Stern really wanted it before his passing. And that was, to continue the great job that I've built and the legacy that I have done. And that's the one thing that we can say, for what it's worth, for good or for bad, and there has been some bad. He was responsible for 2 major lockouts in the NBA. Even though they were only shortened seasons, we didn't lose the entire season. But he was one of those reasons that was under his watch. And one of the most notorious moments in the NBA, I hate to say this, but I got to be fair, the Malice in the Palace under his watch. So for all the good he did, there was also some black eyes and some dark moments that was under his watch as well. So we can't just we got to be very truthful here. And I think that's the best way to say it. There was a lot of great, but there was a lot of negatives under his tenure as commissioner. But at the end of the day, he was a visionary. He revolutionized basketball and the game of basketball, and is one of the most influential people that I have got to witness, to watch. And for me, he is sorely going to be missed. He was my commissioner when I was watching the game. When I started watching it, when I was a young kid back in '91.
Same here.
So for me, it does hit home to lose David Stern. But I know the league is in a better place. And I know the league is going to thrive, especially now under the leadership of Adam Silver, who's done practically an incredible job already. Like there was no bad transition between Stern and Adam Silver. It feels like nothing has changed. It keeps moving and consistently continuing to be where it is today. And that's the best that you can get. So, tragic loss, heartbreaking loss for all of us. And yeah, there's really nothing more to add, Anthony. So,
yeah,
let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on indeed. We'll We'll put the graphic up at the end of the show to do that traditional close. So there's really nothing more to say. I mean, it's very tough to transition, but as the old saying goes, the show must go on, and this show will indeed be dedicated to the memory of David Stern here tonight. So, Mr. Commissioner, this one is for you. That's all there is to say on that, and we hope we do you justice here tonight. So now let's get into a much lighter note, which is the start of the NFL playoffs. We started this 100th season with 32 teams. 20 have now gone by the wayside, and we are now down to the final 12. And we will see, and we are going to see 8 of those 12 teams in action this weekend. The other 4 are on bye, and we'll talk about them next week. So we started off with our first wild card game, which will kick off on Saturday afternoon around 4:35 or so, and it will be simulcast on ESPN and ABC, and it will feature my Buffalo Bills squaring off against the Houston Texans from NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. And, of course, with the game being on ESPN and all that, no big surprise that it will be the Monday Night Football crew who will be calling this game. Joe Tessitore alongside Booger McFarland and Lisa Salters. They will be on hand for this first wild card game. The Buffalo Bills, the number 5 seed, the Houston Texans, the number 4 seed, the champions of the AFC South. Buffalo, one of the wild card teams. Houston opening up as a 2.5-point favorite, and it's also interesting to note that this is the first ever playoff meeting between these two teams. So here we are. The opening game of Wild Card Weekend sees the Buffalo Bills travel to Houston to take on the Texans. The AFC South champions should hopefully be welcoming back 2 major contributors in J.J. Watt and Will Fuller, while the number 5 seeded Bills bring their stingy defense down to NRG Stadium in hopes of slowing down an explosive Texans attack. The winner of this contest won't know who they're playing in the divisional round until the conclusion of the nightcap, but each team is capable of putting a scare into either the Ravens or Chiefs, albeit for different reasons. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though. When the Bills have the ball, it's very simple. The Bills are a defense-first team, but that doesn't mean their offense isn't at all dangerous. It's a below-average unit, 24th in yards per play and 25th in points per drive and 22nd in DVOA. Sure, but, they do have playmakers. Josh Allen, they have an athletic quarterback who can make any throw on the field and create plays out of nothing with his legs. In Devin Singletary, they have a versatile back who can do damage on the ground and through the air. In John Brown and Cole Beasley, they have a speed threat and a possession receiver who can each get open against just about anybody. The key to the Buffalo offense is not being put in situations where they need to create explosive plays in high-scoring games. The Bills scored 30 or more points only twice this season, and both of those games were against the Miami Dolphins. They reached 20 points only 5 more times, which means they scored less than 20 in 9 of their 16 games, including each of their last 4, as they limped their way into the playoffs with a 1-3 finish to the season. If they can grind things down and win a low-scoring game, that's where the Bills want to live. That means a heavy dose of Singletary and Frank Gore. It means Allen throwing to his first read more often than not. And if that player isn't open, tucking it and trying to gain a few yards to keep the clock moving and prevent the offense from being stuck in second or third in long situations where the Bills were among the worst offenses in the league. Per Football Outsiders, Buffalo ranked 30th in DVOA on second and long and 22nd on third and long. The Houston defense, Buffalo will be tasked with beating this weekend, was one of the NFL's worst during the regular season. Despite its opponents having the 3rd worst starting field position in the league, despite there being a top 10 turnover creating unit, the Texans still managed to rank only 24th in points allowed per drive and 21st in the percentage of opponent drives that ended in a score. The Texans defense we see on the field Saturday is going to look somewhat different than the one that has been on the field for the past several weeks. For one big reason, J.J. Watt is coming back. Watt has been out since week 8, recovering from surgery to repair a torn left pectoral muscle. Though he is not the utterly unstoppable force he once was, Watt is still the defense's best player and one who needs to be accounted for on an every snap basis. The middle of the Buffalo offensive line will have its hands full with Watt on the inside. Center Mitch Morse and guards John Feliciano and Quinton Spain form a solid group in the middle, up the middle. But Watt is capable of wrecking any lineman when he's on his game. Watt, along with Whitney Mercilus, DJ Reader, and the rest of the defensive front will be tasked with getting enough pressure on Allen to force him into making mistakes. And Allen had a 60.5 passer rating under pressure this season per Pro Football Focus, compared to a 95.2 mark when throwing from a clean pocket. And with slowing down Singletary and Gore, enough to force the Bills to put the game in Allen's hands. The Texans showed a particular weakness against runs right up the middle this season, allowing 4.63 yards per carry on those plays. And that's where Buffalo had its most success in the run game, with Singletary and Gore able to slice through the middle of defenses, concerned at times with not allowing Allen to use his athleticism to get outside. The Texans will also have to be wary of Allen, allowing Allen to escape the pocket and make plays on the run. Houston allowed 240 yards on quarterback scrambles this season, according to Sports Info Solutions, third most in the NFL, and Allen scrambled 46 times for 330 yards, 19 first downs, and 3 touchdowns, making him one of the most dangerous scramblers in the league. On the other side of the coin, the marquee matchup on the Houston offensive side is unquestionably DeAndre Hopkins versus Tre'Davious White. Unless Will Fuller is healthy enough to suit up, it might not matter. But Fuller suited up against the Bucs in Week 16, but he exited with yet another injury after 19 snaps. And Watson proceeded to have one of his worst games of the season, going just 19 of 32 for 184 yards and a pick against the Bucs pass defense that was lit on fire by several different opponents throughout the season. And the way Fuller draws attention away from Hopkins with his ability to burn defenses deep down the field at any moment is the key to unlocking the Watson to Hopkins connection. And that is particularly true against a defense like the Bills, whose number one priority is taking away deep throws down the field. Buffalo allowed only 15 completions on throws that traveled at least 20 yards in the air during the regular season, third fewest in the NFL. And they had 5 interceptions, 2 drop picks, and 8 pass breakups on those types of throws, against 0 TDs. And that means the defender was just as likely to get his hands on a deep ball throw against Buffalo as was the receiver, which is pretty incredible. So all there is to say here is this. Figuring out a way to test Buffalo down the field, despite the fact that the defense goes all out to stop it, is a key factor to the Texans being able to secure a win. The issue here is that Houston's pass protection is among the worst in the league, while the Bills were among the NFL's leaders in generating pressure on opposing quarterbacks. If Laramie Tunsil and company can't hold up against Jerry Hughes, Trent Murphy, Lorenzo Alexander, Shaq Lawson, Jordan Phillips, and Ed Oliver, it could be a long day in the pocket for Deshaun Watson. But if they give him enough time to survey the field, then perhaps Hopkins or Fuller can spring free. Watson is fully capable of making it happen on his own, but if he has to do it too many times, the Texans risk undermining everything else they want to do offensively. So with all that being said, and thinking about it, I believe in my team. And Houston, they've had a lot of home games, but last couple of times I believe they have fallen. So I'm taking a chance here, and I am going with my team, the Buffalo Bills. I think they can get it done, and I think they will go into Houston and steal one. That's how much I believe in them. So I'm going with the Buffalo Bills to win this game. My final score, 20-17. Buffalo steals one in Houston on to the divisional round. And by golly, it will not be easy. So nothing more to say. MF, Michael Fletcher, come on in. Buffalo Bills, Houston Texans, kicking off Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game, no doubt about it. Anthony hit you guys with the TV announcers. I'll be the one to do Westwood one. I'll do the Westwood one, Anthony. So don't worry. Tom McCarthy, Rod Woodson, and Herb Akshar got the call on that one. And I'm gonna go with this. I actually agree with you for the most part on everything you said. The only thing I'm worried about is JJ Watt. Because if it's the JJ Watt, the All Pro that we know, and if he starts blowing up the blowing up Buffalo, then I say Houston wins. But I'm gonna be open and I'm gonna be very honest with you. I think it's very possible, and I think it's gonna happen. So I'm with you, Anthony. I'm gonna go for Buffalo as well. I think Buffalo is gonna pull off the upset, and I think they're gonna win the game. So, give me the Buffalo Bills to win the game. My final score is 21-17. So, Anthony, it's all yours.
All right, and now we're gonna move on to the nightcap of the Saturday game and the game that MF and I are gonna have the pleasure of having for you. The number 6 seed, the Tennessee Titans, the other wild card team, squaring off against the number 3 seed. Who would have thunk this? AFC East champion New England Patriots. Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, Mass. 8:15 kickoff on CBS. Hello, friends. Jim Nance, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson, they will be there. New England opening up as a 4.5-point favorite. And these teams have quite a bit of postseason history. I mean, they have met in the postseason before. I remember, and one of those times I do remember very vividly. One of the coldest games in history. Yeah, we still have night 4 degrees. 4 degrees at kickoff. Hoy Marone. That I mean, gotta love those space heaters. That's all there is to say. The space heaters. God bless whoever made them. That's all there is to say on that. Because if it wasn't for that, it would have been a very long night. That was back then. But nonetheless, trying to find the history here. Here we go. They met 3 times in postseason play, and the New England Patriots lead it by a count of 2-1. They first met in 1978. That was an AFC divisional playoff game at the old Foxborough Stadium in Foxborough, and the then Houston Oilers defeated the New England Patriots by a score of 31-14. Then it was that infamous 4-degree cold game, January of 2004. That was another divisional playoff. New England won. It was at Gillette, and New England won 17-14. And the most recent, of course, just 2 years ago, January of 2018, that was an AFC divisional playoff as well, and it was all New England in that one, 35-14. So MF, this is uncharted territory for the New England Patriots. They have not been in this position in 10 years.
Yep.
And last time they were in this position, they lost. They lost to the Baltimore Ravens, and we had that one as well. So the question is, New England has been struggling. They lost to your Dolphins. You were there. You were there along with Eric Carrier. I know you guys weren't together.
And Kevin LaRoche. Yep.
And yes, and our dear friend Kevin LaRoche, absolutely. Very integral part of our broadcast team as well. And I'll tell you, I mean, second year in a row, the Miami Dolphins ruin Patriots fans' plans. I mean, they cost them the number 1 seed last year with the infamous Miami Miracle in Miami. And this year, the Dolphins cost the Patriots the number 2 seed in a first-round bye. And now they're at home, and they got to host Tennessee in this wild card game. And the only thing to say as I hand it to you is, as the old saying goes, there is no such thing as a sure thing. So
yeah, no, there isn't. And I'm going to say this. I don't know what happened to the Patriots in that game against the Dolphins. Maybe Miami just wanted it more. New England looked off. Something wasn't right. Something was amiss. I don't know. I think that's the best way to say it. I was at Gillette, like Anthony, you said, and you could feel it in the stadium. This was not the Patriot team that we all come and know. This was definitely a lot more of a different look. This was something that was very interesting, very unique situation. And at the end of the day, the right team won. So you can say whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's just where do you go from here? And now New England's playing a Tennessee team that's been reinvigorated thanks to Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill took the reins over about midway through the year, and the next thing you know, they've turned up the heat. They've turned what looked like a team that was gonna not even make the playoffs, and now here they are as a wild card, and a very dangerous wild card as well. So really, it's kind of, if you're Tennessee, the way to beat the Patriots, you got a running attack. Derrick Henry, if he goes off like he's been going off in the last few games, and Tannehill just has to play smart. Mistake-free football. That's what Ryan Fitzpatrick did against New England last week, and you saw what happened. I think if you just throw the football, establish a running game, and then if you're defensive, you just got to shut the running game down and force Brady to beat you, because unfortunately, in other years, you would be a little afraid of Brady and the Patriots because of their pass attack. There's really no legitimate wide receiving threat or anything like that. You don't have a Gronk. You don't have an Antonio Brown type of situation that can beat you deep. Keep it short. Keep it within the 15, 20-yard range, and try to see if you could frustrate and try to get Brady into all kind of trouble. If you do that, you might as well could win this game, stun the Patriots, they're 1-out, and you have a date with destiny, because then at that point you actually have to play the Baltimore Ravens if you do that.
And they have a lot of history.
Oh yeah. So at the end of the day, do I think that the Patriots could overcome this? Absolutely. I think, look, it could have just been a bad game. Bad performance by the Patriots. They just, it was not their night. Miami was prepared. They were ready for the fight, and they took them out. Or is there something bigger than what meets the eye? I think they'll get by this week. I don't see them getting by Kansas City, especially at Arrowhead, and the way they've been playing lately.
And that would be our game if it happens.
It would. But I think in this situation, I'm going to say Patriots win, but I'm not as confident as I would be in other years. Because normally we'd be like, oh, this is put in the bucket for the Patriots. The way Tennessee's been playing lately, especially in the last month and at least the last month, 2 months, Tennessee's a force to be reckoned with. And they are very, very dangerous.
Absolutely.
To say the very least. So that's going to be an interesting game. Yes, it's Nance, it's Buck, it's Nance, it's Romo, it's Wolfson. For you guys on Westwood One, Mike Chirico, Tony Baselli, and Laura Oakman. Hello.
Yes.
So that's going to be quite a crew for Westwood One, but I got to go with New England. I think New England will get the job done. I think they'll find a way to win this game. It's not going to be easy, but it is what it is. Oh, hello. All right, hold up. Florio, we got breaking news.
Yes. I just noticed it. Derek Ferreira, he's posted it on Facebook. It is now official. Jason Garrett has finally been fired as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and no one has wanted that more than Derek Ferreira has.
No, he has. He has. But the thing is, Garrett was 8-8 this year. He had a team that could have gone to the Super Bowl.
And
I think that's
a lot of experts said that a lot of experts picked him to go to the Super Bowl this year.
yeah. And the thing was that he had a team this year. There was no excuses.
3-0. He started 3-0, and then bada boom.
Everything fell apart.
5-8 down the stretch.
Yeah, and that's not gonna get you. That's not gonna get you anywhere. That's not gonna get the job done. A lot of people.
The Philly game.
The Philly game was the death nail, no doubt about it. If they would have probably won that game, maybe, but at the end of the day, I mean, I can't disagree with the firing here, or that they haven't officially fired him, but they are saying that they are moving on without Jason Garrett. So that pretty much says that he is done. That doesn't necessarily mean it's an official firing, but because remember, his contract ran out. So this is not a firing. This is just they're gonna just let him walk away. That's basically what it is.
Yep.
So there is a difference.
Yeah, big difference. So but I know it sounds like it's going to be official sometime very soon, and if that's the case, then Derek Ferreira is going to be breaking out the balloons and the party hats, as I always say, because no one has wanted Jason Garrett to be fired more than Derek Ferreira has. So you can only imagine what kind of hotline Derek Ferreira will have in store for us once it becomes official. So that's the breaking news that just came in just a few minutes ago, courtesy of Derek Ferreira. Jason Garrett reportedly fired as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll definitely keep an eye on this. And as soon as we get more information, we will definitely pass it on. But for right now, let's get back to this. Excuse me. So MF, you have New England winning. Do you have a score for us, or? Well, all right. So we'll I'll just take it here. So MF said he had New England winning, but not as confident. But same with me. But the New England Patriots are playing in the wild card round for the first time in a decade. Their opponent, somewhat fittingly, is the Tennessee Titans, who are coached by former Patriots linebacker Mike Vrabel, who left New England prior to the 2009 season and did not play in New England's most recent wild card game against the Ravens. Vrabel's Titans team is built a lot like the early Patriots squads, with a power running game complemented by an efficient quarterback and an above-average defense. The Pats don't necessarily look like the recent version of themselves, so it'll be interesting to see how they deal with such a throwback of a team. When Tennessee has the ball for the first 6 weeks of the season, the Titans started Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Their offense was dreadful, scoring only 98 points, good for a 16.3 average that ranked 28th in the NFL. Tennessee's averages of 290.5 yards a game and 4.8 yards per play also ranked terribly, sitting 27th and 29th in the league, respectively. They were also one of the least efficient in the NFL, ranking 29th in DVOA. From the time Ryan Tannehill entered the starting lineup in Week 7 through the end of the regular season, Tennessee raised its averages to 30.4 points a game, which is fourth, 406.2 yards a game, third, and 6.9 yards a play, first. The Titans also saw the second largest jump in offensive DVOA in the entire league. Tannehill ended the regular season having completed 70.3% of his passes at an average of 9.3 yards per attempt, making him the second player in the history of football to exceed 70% in 9 yards per attempt while throwing at least 250 passes in a season. The other guy to do it? Some guy named Joe Montana, who I heard was pretty good. Tannehill finished the year first in the league in passer rating, 9th in QBR, and 5th in DVOA. He threw a touchdown on 7.7% of his pass attempts, the highest mark ever for a player who completed at least 70% of his passes. Titans kept Tannehill extremely well protected, allowing him to throw from a clean pocket on more than 70% of his pass attempts, per the Pro Football Focus. Considering his passer rating dropped off from 122.8 when unhurried to 98.4 when under pressure, that was obviously a very big deal. Not that a 98.4 under pressure rating is bad. It was actually second best in the NFL behind Drew Brees. How Bill Belichick and company decide to approach shutting down this Tennessee offense is a fascinating question. It's clear Tennessee bases much of its attack around Derrick Henry's exploits, but Tannehill is playing so well that Belichick might choose to prioritize slowing down the aerial game. The secondary is the true strength of this defense anyway. In that case, whether or not shutdown corner Stephon Gilmore shadows explosive rookie wide receiver A.J. Brown, by far the Titans' most dangerous receiving threat, particularly in the open field, is the biggest open issue. Gilmore has shadowed a whole lot this season, but Brown's relentless physicality is not the best matchup for Gilmore's skill set. He's more of a technician. When New England has the ball, their offense is unlike any in recent memory. The Pats finished the season 7th in scoring, the first time since 2006. They finished outside the top 6. They ranked 15th in total yards, their worst mark since 2003. New England ranked 21st in yards of play and 17th in points per drive, worse than at any time since 2002 and 2003, respectively. They also finished outside the top 10 in offensive DVOA at Football Outsiders for only the third time in the Brady-Belichick era and the first time since 2003. Julian Edelman has been Tom Brady's number one wide receiver for most of the past 7 seasons. There was a year where he played only 9 games and another where he missed the entire season due to injury. But for most of that time, he has been Brady's guy on the perimeter. And, you know, I came across a chart that shows just how significant Julian Edelman is to Brady. But in the past 3 most recent games, however, Edelman has pretty obviously been playing injured, getting in limited practices with knee and shoulder injuries. His snap rate in those 3 contests is way down from where it usually is. And he's been targeted only 18 times, collecting just 10 catches for 107 yards and no scores. Notably, for this particular matchup, the Titans' best cornerback is slot man Logan Ryan, a former Patriot. And he'll be the one matching up with Edelman for the majority of the game, as Edelman has gone back to spending most of his time, 67.7% of his snaps on the inside. And the major weakness of the Tennessee defense is the team's perimeter corners, which right now means Ty Smith and Tremaine Brock, Senior Smith, allowed a 111.7 passer rating on throws in his direction this season per Pro Football Focus, while Brock was merely at 110.7, so not great. So at the end of the day, the Titans are a bit better against the run than they are against the pass, but they have been hurt by runs out of 2 tight and 2 back formations, 12 or 21 personnel, which is how the Patriots most often like to get into their running game, especially with Sony Michel on the field. I agree with MF on this one. I'm going to go with the New England Patriots, barely. Not the sure thing that it once was. I'm going with New England to win. My final score, I'm going to go 23-20. New England barely escapes Tennessee. So nothing more to say here. Let's move on to the NFC side of things. And when I saw the schedule, I was very surprised that they were going to have both AFC games on Saturday and both NFC games on Sunday. So that's very notable. But right now, let's get into the first of the NFC games. And to me, I'm going to be honest with you, this I think is going to be the game of the wild card weekend right here. 1 o'clock kickoff over on Fox. We got the number 6 seed Minnesota Vikings wild card team squaring off against the champions of the NFC South Division, the number 3 seed, the New Orleans Saints, from the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Aaron Andrews, Chris Myers, they will be there. New Orleans opening up as the biggest favorite of the weekend. New Orleans opening up as a 7.5-point favorite. These teams have met 4 times in postseason history. They first met in a first-round game in 1987 in the Superdome. Minnesota kicked the door down and made themselves at home, a 44-10 beatdown over the Saints in that one. And then the second time was in 2000. They met in the divisional playoff in Minnesota. Minnesota also won that one by a score of 34-16. 2009, this is the one we'll all remember. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, NFC championship game of all time. The Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. Saints winning it 31-28 in overtime. And then their most recent meeting, well, it's one that it's most certainly, without a doubt, the greatest ending to an NFL playoff game. It doesn't matter what round, whether it's wild card, divisional, conference championships, even the Super Bowl, for goodness sakes. It was the greatest ending to a playoff game of all time. The Minneapolis Miracle, just 2 short years ago in Minnesota. Vikings winning it 29-24. The walk-off touchdown pass. Case Keenum to Stephon Diggs. Maybe the greatest call of Joe Buck's NFL career, where Joe Buck basically channeled his inner Gus Johnson on it, and I'll never forget it. Greatest call of Joe Buck's career, no doubt about it. 29-24. So Minnesota leads the all-time postseason series between these two 3-1. So that's the history there. So when it comes to this one, I got to go with New Orleans. No question about this. I'm a fan of Kirk Cousins, and I'm glad that he finally turned into a good quarterback for the Vikings. But let's be real. Who's picking them to beat the Saints in New Orleans? Drew Brees has been on a tear since breaking the record for most career touchdown passes. Over the past 4 games, he has completed 75.4% of his passes for an average of 297 yards a game and has thrown 15 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Used to be really expensive, but then I went to GoodRx.com.
He, of course, and I'll tell you what, excuse me one second, another pop-up video. All right, there you go. Lost my train of thought here thanks to that video. All right. Michael Thomas, we all know, an incredible weapon. He set the single-season reception record this year. But the real story is the emergence of running back Alvin Kamara. After recording just 1 rushing touchdown in the first 15 weeks of the season, Kamara has scored 4 in just the last 2 weeks. The Saints are going to need their Pro Bowl running back to be at his best if they want to make a deep run in the playoffs. And it's a big deal that he registered nice performances to close out the regular season. I think the Saints have a chance to hoist the Lombardi Trophy this year, and I'm going to take them to win by maybe more than a touchdown on Sunday. I think it'll be close for the most part, but I think they'll pull away late. So I say the New Orleans Saints will get their revenge on Minnesota and begin their revenge tour, because the last 2 years have ended in playoff heartbreak for the Saints. First, it was the Minneapolis Miracle 2 years ago, and then last year, of course, the most controversial no call in NFL history, the infamous pass interference that robbed them of the NFC Championship against the LA Rams last year. So 31-21, I'm going with New Orleans to beat Minnesota, get their revenge, start their revenge tour. So there's nothing more to say. MF, come on in. This game against Minnesota on Sunday afternoon, the first stop for what the Saints will hopefully be a revenge tour for them, because the last 2 years have ended with the 2 most demoralizing losses in franchise history, with the Minneapolis Miracle and the screw job of last year. So MF, who you got here, Minnesota or New Orleans? I got New Orleans 31-21. What says you? Oh, MF had to step away for a minute. I just noticed that in our chat box. So we'll wait for him to come back. So as soon as MF comes back in, we'll get his thoughts on the Vikings and the Saints. So with that being said, let's move on to our other NFC wildcard matchup, and this will close out the weekend. It is a 4:40 kickoff, and this will be over on NBC. It'll be the Seattle Seahawks, the number 5 seed, squaring off against the number 4 and the other NFC wildcard, squaring off against the number 4 seed and the champions of the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles from Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. Seattle opening up as a 1.5-point favorite. first ever playoff meeting between these two teams, and it's over on NBC. The Sunday Night Football crew will have this one. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Michelle Tafoya, and I'll be honest with you, I've been going back and forth on this game. The Seahawks were able to take down the Eagles 17-9 in Week 12 thanks to a big day from Rashad Penny. But the Seahawks are now decimated at the running back position and had to bring 33-year-old Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. And he was definitely the best option for the Seahawks on the open market. But I don't think he instantly makes them a Super Bowl contender. Carson Wentz passed for a career-high 4,039 yards this season, which is actually the most yards in a single season in Eagles franchise history. Even though his wide receiving corps is decimated, Wentz has found a way to get the job done in big games. But still, I think the Seahawks are the better team, and I'm taking Russell Wilson to come through in a close game. So I am going to go with the Seattle Seahawks to win this one. I think they'll steal it in Philly. My final score is going to be 23-20. Seattle beats Philadelphia. So we are awaiting the return of MF to our show here. He had to step away. Hopefully he will be back with us very shortly. So, and it'll also give me a chance to break down the playoff schedule in the divisional round on the Saturday. Both number one seeds will be in action. The number one seed, San Francisco 49ers in the NFC, and the AFC's number one seed, the Baltimore Ravens. They'll be in action on Saturday. And on Sunday, the number two seeds will be in action, first with the Kansas City Chiefs. And a very unusual starting time, 3:05 Eastern time for that Sunday divisional game over on CBS. And then 6:40 over on Fox for the Green Bay Packers, and when they host whoever they will play. And then the AFC and NFC championship games will be at their traditional starting times. AFC will be first at 3:05 on CBS, and then the NFC game will be at 6:40, and that'll be on January 19th. And then, of course, week after that's the Pro Bowl, and then the week after that, February the 1st or 2nd, I believe, it will be Super Bowl 54 from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. So that's the remaining bit of the schedule here, and still awaiting MF to come back in, and so I don't really know what else there is to get into here, other than the fact that originally we were going to get into the College Football Playoff National Championship game, but since the game is so far off, we're going to push it back to next week, and we're going to preview that along with the 4 divisional games, and those will all go down next week. So we are awaiting MF. Hopefully he will be hopefully very, very shortly, and soon enough he'll be back in, and then we can get his thoughts on the NFC wildcard games with the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints, and the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll just take it, and then we'll put a bow on this show. So so that's pretty much all I have. Just awaiting MF to come back in, and so should be a very exciting weekend, to say the very least. And I'm very much looking forward to all the games, and I know you are all out there as well. So I do apologize for this dead air spot. I mean, there's nothing really else I need to get into. I mean, I've already had my say when it comes to the wild cards. So just awaiting him to come back in, and then we'll put the bow on this thing. So but yeah, All right. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna hold on here, and I mean, I'll go a little more detail into the game, into these NFC games here. It's a rematch of a classic playoff game 2 seasons ago, which was won by the Vikings on the Minneapolis Miracle, but this one is in New Orleans. The Saints are a much better team at home, and Drew Brees and the offense move it much better inside the Superdome. Vikings have had
My prescriptions used to be really
defensive
expensive,
issues this
but then
season,
I went to GoodRx.
and I think Brees will exploit those. Kirk Cousins has never won a playoff game, won't be able to keep up. So that's really all there is for me to say on that. I do apologize. A pop-up video came in. So yeah. I just think New Orleans is the far superior team, and I think they get their payback from 2 years ago. Whereas with Seattle and Philly, I mean, that one really can go either way. I mean, Philadelphia, you think about it, Philly, they were dead to rights, but somehow, some way, came back and won the NFC East, including that big win over Dallas a couple weeks ago. And they did it with a very banged up roster, a very banged up receiving core. A lot of significant weapons went down, like Deshaun Jackson went down, and Jordan Howard went down, and so many others went down. And, really how that team came back. So, all right, MF is ready. I do apologize for all the rambling here, but I had to cover while MF was out. So, MF, I already gave my thoughts on the NFC games. I have Minnesota beating New Orleans. I mean, I have New Orleans beating Minnesota, rather, 31-21. And I have Seattle just barely getting by Philadelphia, 23-20. I'm going to step away for a minute. So, MF, let everybody know about it.
All right. No, I kind of agree on everything that you were going to say. As far as New Orleans goes, I think they're a team on a mission right now. I think with everything that happened about a year or so ago, after they got their hearts broken and got knocked out of the playoffs in controversial fashion with the pass interference that was never called. In that situation, I kind of feel like New Orleans is a team that really wants to get back to the Super Bowl, and they really want to win it this time around. They got the team to do it with Drew Brees, with Alvin Kamara, and that great running game. Michael Thomas, who easily has over 1,000 yards receiving, and easily could become one of the big names this season. At the end of the day, I kind of feel like they have what it takes to make a big run, and thus, I believe, could go all the way to the Super Bowl. Now, for Minnesota, I know a lot of people are not really high on them. Look, they're a dangerous team nonetheless. I think they had a very good season. But when you go up against New Orleans in that dome, I kind of feel like they're just going to be a lot more better, a lot more stronger. You expect a big game from Jared Cook. Michael Thomas is to show up. I think Alvin Kamara is going to look good, even though he didn't play much. He played about a half, but he's going to look really good. And on top of that, you also got a very, very, very strong looking team as well. So I think they're going to win this game, no doubt about it. As far as the final game goes, which is when you go into the final game of the week, Seattle and Philadelphia, Seattle let one get away last week, guys. I think we all can agree with that. Seattle had the game. It looked like this was their moment. They were going to be the NFC West champions, and they just let it get away from them. A lot of people kind of wondering what the hell happened. How did it blow up in their faces? But it did. So they kind of didn't let the good things happen there. Then on top of that, you had Philadelphia, like you said, injuries galore. They were definitely shorthanded going in. But give credit where credit's due to Carson Wentz. And now it looks like they do have a good running back in David Boston now. Boston Scott, I should say. He's really shined in the last few weeks, playing a great game, playing some good football without doubt. Had 3 touchdowns against the Giants to get him to the division title. So we're just going to have to wait and see how it goes. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, a very interesting game. But I'm with you, Anthony. I totally agree with the picks that you said. So I'm actually going with the Seattle Seahawks and the New Orleans Saints to win on Wild Card Weekend, along with the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. So that would set up, if everything goes accordingly. Now, according to what we had, New England would play Kansas City. I would have Buffalo playing Baltimore. And on the NFC side, if it goes, it would be New Orleans versus Green Bay. And it would be the 49ers would play the New Orleans Saints. And oh my. No, actually, they would play, the Niners would play
Seattle or Philly.
Seattle. And if that's the case, then get ready for part 3.
Woo.
And back at Levi Stadium,
where they had that epic 5-star game on Veterans Day night.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see. It's gonna be interesting to see, but yeah. So I'm that's it. So it's all yours, Florio.
Well, before I wrap it up, MF, let's have you come on in and set the table for what we can expect on Cerebral Smack Talk tomorrow night. Big show, I hear.
One of the biggest shows of the year, guys, because tomorrow, all right, you know it's going to be Friday Night SmackDown. We're going to recap that. But what we're going to do is we're also going to be previewing one of the biggest wrestling shows of the year from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom. It's happening on Saturday from the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan. And guys, you want to talk about a huge event? It's a 2-night event. We're going to cover it all. Night 1 is huge. Night 2 is going to be revolutionary. Title for title, winner take all.
Oof.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nothing more to say.
Okay.
Anthony, 10:30 tomorrow night.
All right.
And we'll see you then.
Yep. 10:30 tomorrow night over on MF's channel, Brace Fan 95. We will have the Cerebral Smack Talk Friday Night SmackDown review. And then MF, that's part of his Mikey's Mindset, will preview Wrestle Kingdom. That's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to hear what MF has to say about that, especially that title for title match. I'm very intrigued about that, so I can't wait to hear that. So after that, we will be with you Monday night, Ridiculously Raw, the first Monday Night Raw of the new year. Brock Lesnar's gonna be there, and we got 2 big title matches. Andrade defending the United States Heavyweight Championship against Rey Mysterio. And, of course, that triple threat match for the Raw Tag Team Championship, the Viking Raiders versus the Good Brothers versus the Street Profits. We'll get into that on Monday night. And then from there, of course, we will have the return of Wednesday Night Mayhem. We've been off for that the last couple of weeks because of Christmas and New Year's, respectively. This Wednesday night, we will have the return of Wednesday Night Mayhem, AEW Dynamite, NXT. And let me just tell you, AEW Dynamite, far and away their best. That was their best show last night. That was one hell of a show last night. No doubt about it. I mean, especially with NXT being on the back burner, with the year-end awards and their 3 matches of the year, which they, showed almost in their entirety. But it was an easy night for AEW, and boy, howdy did they put forth maybe their best effort since starting Dynamite. So, well done. So we'll get into that and NXT on Wednesday night. And then next week, here on Football Thursday, we will preview the 4 NFL divisional playoff games. And then in our main event, it will be the College Football Playoff National Championship game the number 3 Clemson Tigers, the number 1 LSU Tigers, Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. We'll get into that. That'll be the main event, and that'll be all for next week. And then the week after that on this program, we'll finally get into our regulation shows with Hot Stove and Big News and all that stuff. So that'll be that, and then Cerebral Smack Talk obviously after that. So that's it. So for the final time tonight, if you missed the top of the show, we had the sad news about the passing of legendary NBA Commissioner David Stern, who passed away on New Year's Day yesterday at the age of 77 after suffering a brain hemorrhage. So this one was for you tonight, sir, and I hope we did it justice for you here tonight. So until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk over on MF channel Brace Bay 95, it's Anthony Florio here for good old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, Didi Woodson, and always and forever, Derek Forever. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah. Throw it up, Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Friday. And until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk, keep it watching Football Thursday right here on its own 25 on StreamYard and YouTube.com. For everybody who has been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long. Bye, everybody. Bye. For the final time tonight, David Stern. Again, I say thank you for the memories. Thank you for the inspiration. But most of all, thank you for David Stern. And thank you for making the NBA what it truly is today. Goodbye, my friends.